Welcome back. We're going to talk about national and individual suicides as part of this. But before we get into the heavy stuff, let's do something a little bit light. Let's talk about the Washington Redskins. Yes, it's not white fragility. It is red fragility, I think. And you've got people of color purging themselves everywhere. I mean, you know, Black Lives Matter. They want to get rid of the first black female to ever win an Oscar, Hattie McDaniels. Let's purge the Gone with the Wind movie. Let's get rid of Uncle Remus. Let's get rid of Song of the South. You know, very wise slave showing the universal humanity of man. No. We got to get rid of that. Hattie McDaniels, very strong woman, but now let's purge the movie that she won the Oscar for. And so now we're looking at the slings and arrows of outrageous cancel culture. The slings and arrows of outrage about Redskins. The Washington Redskins retired their hurtful name, they said, and their logo, but they don't even have a new name yet. So they're now the Washington no-names. Maybe we should call them the Washington Anons. The Anons. They are so ashamed. They don't have a logo. They don't have a name. And that's the one right there, the Washington Orange Skins. Several people sent that to me. I put out a request. We're going to go through some of these names that people gave me on Twitter. Had some very, very clever names for the Washington Redskins to use because, you know, we all need to help them. These multi-billionaires are trying to figure out what they're going to call the multi-millionaires who are playing this boys game. And they're cowering in their corner, looking for solutions, looking for answers. And so we want to come to their aid because we feel so sorry for these wealthy people. And first one to come to their aid was the Navajo Nation. And they released a statement saying, we've got a solution for you. They said, we strongly encourage NFL Washington organization, we don't know what they are now, right, to do something that respects the Navajo Nation. They could call themselves the Code Talkers, you know, like the Navajo Code Talkers. World War II, they used these guys. It was a great way to hide the information from the Germans because the Germans didn't have anybody that spoke Navajo language. And so they would get these guys in and they would talk to each other over the radio. Very dangerous situation. And on the front lines. And so I said, yeah, call them the Washington Code Talkers. And I thought about that and thought, well, that's not really a very dynamic mascot, you know. But code talkers, let's see, we have code breakers in Washington. They pride themselves on breaking codes and spying on everybody. Oh, that's it, the Washington Spies. They could do all kinds of stuff with that. A lot of people suggested the swamp creatures. That'd be another one good one too. So I put that up and I said, give me some suggestions. We had some great ones. One person said, Washington Red Tape. I think that'd be really good, the Washington Red Tapes. Because that's really what they're. The Washington Red Ink. Yeah, there you go. The Warmongers. Oh, that's great. I liked this one. The Washington Panders. Not pandas, panders. But, you know, they could use a panda, you know, because it's black and white. There you go. That's got a lot of problems solved right there. One person said the McMurray University Indians down the street from me were pressured by the NAACP or whoever it was to change their names to the Warhawks a few years ago, from the Indians to the Warhawks. So we call them the skirmish chickens. I like that. Oh, and by the way, you know, when we're talking about the Indians self-canceling themselves, maybe the Navajos ought to go back and take a look at the fact that the Redskin logo was sent to me by somebody. The Redskin logo was designed by the former leader of the Blackfeet Indian tribe, Walter Blackie Wetzel. He went by the nickname Blackie. Do Blackie lives matter? do Blackie logos matter? How about that? BLM, Blackie logos matter. Let's save the existing logo. It was done by a Blackfoot or Blackfeet. I don't know. Proudfoot, Proud Feet. What is that? Seems like there was a movie about that somewhere. Anyway, the orange skins, a lot of people like that. There's also a logo out there saying, just showing a potato. So just change it to a potato and call it the Redskins. This is fine. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about Mr. Potato Head. Greenbacks, since that's all they really care about, says one listener. Redcoats, the Washington Thinskins. Oh, but I like this one. The Washington Foreskins. I guess I can say that and be circumspect on radio, right? The Washington Capitulators. The highwaymen, that would be a good one. The Washington wokes, the Washington wimps, the Washington conformists, the Washington parasites. Now, that's a good one. We could even call them the polyticks, right? Many blood-sucking parasites in Washington. The Washington parasites, the polyticks. Washington regulators, the Washington warrantless wiretaps. Got some alliteration going on there. The Washington traitors, the D.C. comrades, the Washington radicals. Oh, yeah, that's good. They could use Nancy Pelosi or, no, they could use the Washington squad. They could put the squad there. Yeah, that'd be great. The kneelers. And, you know, I've said when all this stuff started, and it started in the NFL, started with Colin Kaepernick, I said they ought to call them the NEFL. And I think they need to change their name because, look, the NFL, if you look at that, it is the National Football League. Now, why would they want to be associated with a nation of racists? You've got to get rid of this nation, right? This is what this is all about, is getting rid of the nation. So why would you call yourself the National Football League? That makes no sense at all. As a matter of fact, you got other problems besides that, because you have within the National Football League, which we could rename the NEFL. Within the NEFL, you would still have the National Conference and the American Conference. We can't call it the American Conference. I mean, they're trying to purge the flag and the national anthem. They don't like the national anthem. They don't like the black anthem. So maybe what we could do is call it the African American Conference. And then call the other one, instead of a national conference, we could call it the Aslan Conference. How about that? The new nation, the new Hispanic nation. That'd be very woke. The Washington Red Chinese, one person writes. So we have a lot of suggestions there. I'm sure that they can find something there. Ben Garrison has a thing about NFL teams renamed. He said they could call them the Carolina Concussions. Safety first, and they got a Hello Kitty. He's got a Hello Kitty on this giant helmet. I really do like the Cleveland Reds. You know, they could just have the hammer and sickle on there. The Seattle Snowflakes, the Tennessee Tantrums. Ben Garrison's got a great cartoon about that. And then Babylon Bee. Here's what's problematic with each of the NFL's 32 team names. I'm not going to go through all 32 of them. Some of the best ones. Arizona Cardinals. Yeah, that's just too religious. The Carolina Panthers. You know, the Panther was appropriated wholesale from the Wakandan culture. And, you know, the thing is, when you look at Babylon Bee satire, it's really not satire anymore, is it? Because these people are taking this stuff out of context. You know, we know the Cardinals are talking about a bird, right? They look at that, and these illiterate, ignorant, hateful Marxists that are marching in the streets for Black Lives Matter and for Antifa, they would truly believe that the Arizona Cardinals were about religious cardinals. And, I mean, that's how devoid of any understanding and context they really are. The Cleveland Browns. Brown what? What are you talking about? Skin color again? This sounds like white fragility. Or the Green Bay Packers. No, no, no. That glorifies butcherous meat packers and meat causes global warming. Or the Indiana Colts. This name glorifies guns. Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are driven by evil rich billionaires as they run over poor people. The Miami Dolphins. A painful reminder that SeaWorld still exists. The New Orleans Saints. We know that this goes against the constitutional principle of separation of church and sports. The New York Giants, they prefer the term persons of height. The Eagles are a well-known Nazi symbol because this has been all over social media from the left. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening, folks. All right, it's not just the Redskins or John Wayne. They're also coming after the Texas Rangers, the real Texas Rangers. As Breitbart points out, an editorialist for the Washington Post, Karen Attia, is taking aim at the Texas Rangers. She calls herself a Ghanaian American, even though she was born in the USA and grew up in Texas. And when I look at this, I think she's a Ghanaian American, though she was born in the USA. Why doesn't she just call herself a Wakandan American? I mean, if we're going to indulge in fantasies here, why don't you go for the big ones, right? If we're going to embrace it, go for it all. You know. Anyway, same writer who last month raised eyebrows when she threatened white women with violence for not being woke enough. And she says, I grew up in Dallas. This Ghanaian, Wakandan whatever she is, raised on myths about Texas Rangers as brave and wholesome guardians of the Texas frontier. Well, you know, they weren't really myths, actually. And they still are pretty straight-up guys. We had a Texas Ranger come here right after I started working and wanted to come in and investigate a comment that we had on our website. It's one of the reasons why we don't why we went to third parties for the comments, because, you know, they want to hold you responsible for it. Isn't that interesting? Not the Section 230 didn't apply there. It does apply to these people who curate all the comments, Facebook and other places and so forth. But yeah, it did not apply. And I really felt bad. He was such a clean-cut, straight-up guy, Ernest. I really felt bad to shut the door in his face and tell him to get a search warrant. But I told him, wait. I had do go talk to him about it. Anyway, but yeah, I do want him to actually go with the search warrant. But he was a nice guy, had a cool cowboy hat and everything. I still remember the excitement when Chuck Norris himself, star of the television show Walker, Texas Rangers, came to visit my elementary school class. What we didn't realize at the time was that the Rangers were a cruel, racist force when it came to non-whites who inhabited the beautiful and untamed Texas territory. Hey, let me tell you about how untamed the Texas territory was. These were Indians who, if you go back and actually read any history, instead of imagining, you know, what it was like as a Wakandan living in Texas, if you actually go back and look at it, you see that they had wars, not only with each other, but with the white people, too, who came here. You know, but they were warring with each other. They would burn, they would kill, they would enslave, they would torture. They had some really brutal torture methods. When some of them were brought in who were captured, you know, they got really rough with the towns as well. I mean, it was the Wild West really wasn't about the cowboys shooting each other in the streets. You had the highwaymen, you had the gunslingers, but pretty much they left everybody else alone. But the Indians went after everybody, including other Indians. And so, yeah, they did go into that beautiful, untamed Texas territory, and they tamed it and made it more beautiful and civilized. She said the first job of the Rangers, formed in 1835 after Texas declared independence from Mexico, was to clear the land of Indians for white settlers. Well, not completely clear it, but yeah, you get the idea. And so she wants to come after the Texas Rangers. You know, they've already removed the statue, 12-foot tall statue, to one of the leaders in Dallas. And as this is moving along, I thought it was kind of interesting that there's an 86-foot tall tribute to the president of the Republic of Texas, Sam Houston. That is in Huntsville, Texas. Huntsville, Texas. The place kind of made famous by the movie Stir Crazy with Richard Pryor. If you saw that, the rodeo, I went to that rodeo once. That was a crazy rodeo, really crazy rodeo. But they were worried. Black Lives Matter was saying they were going to come and take down that statue. And the people there said, well, you know what? We will use lethal force to protect the statue of Sam Houston. Good for them. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. I've got a little bit more to say about the cancel culture and how crazy it is here before we get into national suicide, both collectively and individually. I've had several people write me and ask me to talk more about this because of what they see happening and how this is being disappeared. But we've been talking about the Washington Redskins, the team without a name. So they're looking for names. So we've got a lot of suggestions for them. And they were actually, most of them were pretty polite, quite frankly. But yeah, we've all got names that we refer to Washington as. There's no shortage of that. But then they're also looking to come after the Texas Rangers, a sports team, but also the institution, to demonize that. We had Black Lives Matter protesters saying that they were going to deface or destroy the statue of Sam Houston, president of the Republic of Texas. And people said, well, we will use force in Huntsville, Texas. And as I was saying, that is, if you ever get a chance, well, I don't know, now that we have the new COVID world that they've imposed on us, I don't know if there will ever be any rodeos anymore. That's one spectator sport I enjoyed. Back in early 1980s, when my wife and I moved here right after we got married, We used to go to the rodeo all the time. It was our favorite thing to do. We'd do that every Saturday night. There was a rodeo, the small town outside of Houston, Symington, Texas. And they had a rodeo and then a dance, and it was a hoot. Same animals every week, some of the same gags every week. They had one horse that they called April Showers. April Showers did not like the event, and April Showers had a bowel issue, hence the name. And April Showers would do a couple of kicks and then let fly with the showers. And if you were in the first couple of rows, you were going to get wet. That never happened to us. Fortunately, we saw it the first time that happened, and we knew to stay well back when that event was coming out. But it was always kind of funny because it was kind of an inside joke. They would have officials come in. I remember one time they had a delegation from China come in to the Symington Rodeo, and the radio announcer for all the locals said, "We'd like to welcome our guests of honor from the Chinese delegation right there in the front row." We all knew what was going to happen to all of them, and yes, it did. Yes, it did. So all of you people who focus on communist China, just you should have been there. It was a wonderful sight to see. Nevertheless, as we look at, the Symington Rodeo, not Symington, the Huntsville Rodeo, that's a prison rodeo. And it was a central thing in Stir Crazy, the movie by Richard Pryor. And quite frankly, the real thing is even crazier. Craziest rodeo I've ever seen. These are prisoners, and this is the serious prison where they put people, very serious criminals. It's where they do the executions, or if they still do them, I guess. I don't know. And they would have this was something that you were allowed to do if you were really good. You could get out there and get banged up on these bulls and these bronking horses and so forth. And they had some very unusual events as well. I mean, they had bronking horses that you would have to hold the horse. They'd go out on a team, and they'd have some guys hold the horse still while they put a saddle on it and then try to run it to the other side and racing the other guys. And the way they would do that is they'd have some guys like jump on the neck of the horse and bite its ear. You know, not bite through it, but, hard enough that the horse would just kind of freeze. And they'd have some guys come out and put the saddle on the horse. And they were in a hurry. And many of them did not get it cinched up properly. So they'd get halfway across the rodeo field, and then the saddle would come loose, and they would come under the horse. And all kinds of crazy stuff that was happening. I mean, it was just they would have mob events where they just let out a whole bunch of cattle, and these guys would have to grab them. But they wanted, and they get hurt. That's the whole thing. The animals don't get hurt at rodeos. It's the cowboys that do. I've seen some real, back in the day, they're now wearing helmets and chest stuff, when they do the bulls. But when we were watching it, they wore cowboy hats. And I saw some guys really get seriously injured. I mean, the bulls are just fine. Yeah, that's one of those events right there that you're showing there. That's a Brahma bull. They had one of those at the Symington Rodeo as well. They called it cocaine. It was a white Brahma bull, and they had an event. They called it hard money. And you could put your money into a pool because it continued week to week. They would put a string around the bull's neck, and everybody would be out there on foot, and they would release that bull out there, and he didn't wait for anybody to try to come to take that thing off. He came after you. And we saw a guy get flipped up like a cartoon, I think, landed on his feet and went running straight over the fence. But when my brother-in-law came, I didn't tell him what it was about, and I gave him some money and spotted it for him. I knew he could run fast, and I knew he'd have a good enough sense to get out of there pretty quickly. But anyway, getting back to the cancel culture, because, and I always think about the rodeo because one of the first crazy cancel culture things I saw was when we moved to North Carolina after going to the rodeo. They had a rodeo in North Carolina, and we went and thought, this would be good. And it was really small. It was really wimpy. And they had all of these animal rights protesters out there. And it's like, have you ever seen a rodeo? I've never seen, when they have a rodeo, like I said, they have the same animals week after week. That is their capital for their business. They're going to take care of those animals. The cowboys were expendable. They went. They came and they went. But the animals, they were there week after week, and they took care of the animals, not the cowboys. But that was the first place I saw the cancel culture when we went back to North Carolina. They really didn't like rodeos, and I didn't like the North Carolina rodeos either. But anyway, so they're protecting it in Huntsville, Alabama. And then we look at other sports, the ones that don't involve livestock of a sort. We have the WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association, and they are going to be playing all their games this season in a quarantine bubble atmosphere, reports USA Today. The opening weekend will be dedicated to the Black Lives Matter movement, with all the aspects of the game and player outfitting designed to affirm Black Lives Matter and honor victims of police brutality and racial violence, according to the league's press release. And I presume that maybe what they'll do is they'll take all the free shots from the kneeling position. That would be good. I think they should do that. They're just better enjoy the time that they've got, because these women at the WNBA are soon going to be replaced by men, I'm sure. And then they'll have to change the name to the Trans NBA. They will be basically purged by that culture. The Philadelphia Union, which I think is a soccer team, they have shirts with the names of black people killed by police. The Union entered the field with Black Lives Matter warm-up shirts, and they had different names on the back of all these different shirts. But of course, police don't just kill excessively black people. It's white people as well. If you really wanted to fix the problem, you would say, let's make this everybody's problem. But no, they want to use it as to start a race war, and that's precisely what this is about. As a matter of fact, there's an update on some camera footage on the one that started all of this, and we're going to take a look at that coming up in the show. Major League Baseball is all over social media with Black Lives Matter posts. Yeah, the pro basketball is, pro baseball, Breitbart says, escaped from much of the kneeling stuff. That was the NFL that was doing that. But now it looks like this is where they're headed. And I got to say to you, none of these places are going to be allowed to do business under the corporate fascist rules that we have now. This is one of the reasons why they're going so woke. They need the corporate sponsorship, and the corporations are the ones that are pushing this along with the government. And so they're not going to get sponsorship. They're not even going to be allowed to operate if they don't push all this stuff through. They are saturating their Twitter feed with praise to Black Lives Matter. Take me out to the ball game. No, it's going to be take me out of the ball game. Take me out of the stands, because that's where we are with COVID-19. All right, when we come back, we've got the suicide watch that the nation is on, and an update about the Mississippi flag and the Satanic Temple. Stay with us.
Where the hell did this water come from? Where did it come from? Where did it come from?
InfoWarsStore.com. We can't survive without pure, clean drinking water. So make sure that it's always available to you with the Alexa Pure water filtration system. This gravity-fed system filters through all the toxins and gets straight to clean, healthy, great-tasting water. Yummy in my tummy. Bring the purest, most refreshing water to your home by ordering the Alexa Pure water filtration system today from InfoWarsStore.com. InfoWarsStore.com. Other systems just don't compare.